Hi there, Sandra here. Now, just for a change, because I don't think I've ever done one of these, I'm actually going to do a little how-to on how to make a bag like this. Now, this is a very simple bag to make, but I'm going to make it even easier for you to do. So my tip is to see if you can get your hands on some of this. Now, in Spain, it is sold for tablecloth material, and very conveniently, as you can see here, this one happens to be marked with squares. Now, I haven't cut this to any particular size. You can use whatever size you like. Now, you'll notice that this is a little grubby. This is because I've cut this up. This was something that I was using to protect my desk while I was painting at one stage. The dirt I've got on here will come off in the wash. I just haven't bothered to wash it yet. I'll wait until I've got my bag made. And I'm going to be using this in the craft room, so even if the lining isn't really spotlessly pristine, it really makes no difference. It's going to have pens and things put in it. It's probably going to get ink on it at some stage. So for this particular method, you want 2 pieces of this. Now, the reason I've used this is because you don't have to bother doing any over sewing. It's not going to fray or anything else. Now, the other thing you could use is a new dusting cloth. Now, this one happens to have Polvo written on it, but if I was going to be making this into a bag, I would just put some vinyl transfer over there and yeah, you wouldn't ever know. So you can use something like that, because this also, Teddy in the background there, is already edged and therefore no edges to fray. So you have your 2 pieces of plastic, whatever it is that you're using. You also want a couple of smaller pieces, so a couple of inches square will be fine. You need a zipper. Now, if you have any young children around, or indeed if you change out your wardrobe fairly frequently, it's worthwhile taking zippers out of garments along with buttons and other fastenings that you might have, because zippers cost quite a lot of money these days, unless you happen to find a cheap supply. And since second-hand clothing doesn't usually go for very much, especially children's clothing, if you don't have anyone to hand it down to, take it apart, reuse the fabric, reuse the notions. So I've got a zipper here, and I've put some double-sided tape along the edges. This one I've already taken the backing off. And I'm just going to pull this back a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to put this like so, and I'm going to stitch that. And I'm also going to take this bit back, if I can get the backing off of here, put that there. So the first thing I'm going to do is stitch those together. Now I'm going to move that because that did not go close enough for my taste. Okay, that's not too bad. So the first thing is to simply sew these pieces here. So you'll probably need to put a narrow foot on. Now, some sewing machines have a narrow zipper foot, but whatever foot you're using, you want to stitch quite close to there and do a couple of rows. Sewn on, and they're pretty even. I'm quite happy with that. So next you want to put your main piece of fabric so that it is approximately centered to the zip, and I want it to go fairly close to the teeth. I just line it up next to the teeth like that. I can open the zipper to make sure that gets lined up properly. There we go. And you want to stitch all the way down that edge. When doing the next side, it's exactly the same, just turn it around, choose whichever side of the design you want, and line the edges up, like so. Move the zipper out of the way if you need to get it straight, like so. And then you stitch that side. Now, when you're stitching, you'll notice that the zipper can possibly be in the way. So what you do is you put the needle down through to hold the position, and then you move the zipper backwards or forwards depending on which way you need to do it, to move the zipper out of the way, and then you don't get a nasty little bump in the stitching. Now the zipper is in, I can trim off the excess here because I don't need that. And I have my zip perfectly placed. Works great. Wonderful. Now, for the next bit, keep your zipper open, at least part way, because you definitely want to have it open in order for this to be easier to do. If you have it fully closed and you're doing seams, it's going to be really difficult to open it from there. So part way, mid zipper is great. Your next task is to do the side seams. Fold it from the center of the zipper and work from that fold to the base. So that's the center bit. As it happens, mine lines up pretty well, but stitch from the fold down to the free edge. Do that on both sides. Once you've done that, do the lower edge as well. Now, if you want to, you can use clips to keep it in place. To be honest, this material's not that bad to do, so I'm just not going to bother. I'll just do it freehand and stitch it without any other assistance. Edges all stitched, so now I can actually open the zipper, or I should be able to. Open it fully. There we go. Now, what you want to do with the bottom is open it up, get it so that that seam there and that seam there are sort of lined up. And then you want to decide how far you want to stitch across here. Now, how far you want to stitch from there to there depends on how wide you wish your bag to be, because this determines the width of the sides. So like this, okay, that's what it's going to end up looking like. Now, since I happen to have a marker there, that would be quite useful, and I should, in theory, have the same marker on the other side. So I will stitch this one, I will then fold this one, make sure it's matched up, and then I'll show you how you do the top ones. So you end up with something that's a bit shaped like a Cornish pasty. And just trim off the excess. To make it a lot easier, because normally you would have to apply a loop or something to one side at least, so that you've got something to grab hold of to open and close the zipper. I'm not doing that because there's a way around it, and once I've got this around the right way, we'll be able to see what we're doing. Now you could, if you wanted to, leave it just as it is. That isn't something that I intend to do, but you could, and that is in fact how a lot of makeup bags are designed, so that you have a flat base and then this goes to a point. But what I'm going to do is to give you some grips, and literally all you do is stitch across the top here, and then that gives you two things to grip your bag by when you're pulling your zip in either direction. But you want to make sure that you've got that fully out as far as it is going to go. There we are. And it'll end up giving us a nice boxy look to our bag. I said, if you don't want the boxy look, then don't do that. Now, what I did on this bag, and I confess it was because I forgot to put the loop in, I actually put a, what do you call them? It's not a brad. It's one of those things with holes in. I can't remember what they're called now. Put one of those things through. Unfortunately, I did make the hole to put it through a little bit too big, so I then had to mend this idea. So I've got a bead, and I threaded the bead through with some string, And then on the inside, I tied another bead, and then I put some hot glue around the raw edge of the fabric hole as well. Now the reason I've done this is because if you did something and it was pulling too hard on the fabric is going to wear, it's going to tear, you'll end up with a hole. This way, it means if I pull on that, all that happens is the bead on the other side is pulled, the fabric is not under stress. So that's what I did on that one. So with this one, I didn't want to add anything else, but I wanted to make sure it could be gripped. So I'm just going to put the 2 lines of stitching, one across here, one across here. Now it's up to you how wide you make it. You might decide, well actually I don't want it that wide across the top, I just want a little grip. Or you can have the full grip size. Yeah, it's a matter of personal preference. Here we are, the finished bag with these 2 pieces. You can easily grip and open and close. No extra bits needed. Now the other option that you can do with this kind of thing, if you were making this style of bag, but you're making it, for example, as a shoulder bag, anything like that, that you wanted to add a handle to, when you're doing this, fold that over. If you have a shorter zip, you can fold that over, put a D-loop in, and then use that to add a handle. So you don't even have to bother doing anything else to add your handles in. I don't like stitching handles in particularly because quite often I want to remove a handle or a strap, but if you want to put one on and you put a D-loop on there, then you have the option. The other option, if you are going to do it with something like this, would be to put some kind of chain handle on, and in that case you could use the eyelets that you press in, the metal eyelets, and thread it through one of those. But yeah, that's how you make a very simple little bag for your pens, your pencils, or your cosmetics, or whatever, from things that you might have lying around the house. This one, what I did was basically, instead of having one piece of fabric and it just being, single layer, I literally put the zipper in here and then used this as if it was one piece of fabric. Now yes, I have some seams on the inside, but they are all finished off with a zigzag stitch. It is not a problem as far as I'm concerned. If I was doing it as a handbag, yes, I would do the lining in such a way that all the seams were hidden. But if you're using it as something like this, or just some kind of hold-all, I really don't see the problem. If you have a zigzag on your machine, or even a blanket stitch or something like that you could use on your machine, then you can make it neat enough that you really don't have to worry about it. Unless you're particularly fussy and you want your interior of your bag to look pristine. But then if you're doing that, you're not using your bag, are you? Because whose bag looks pristine when it's got everything in it? You can't see the seams. So what's the fuss? But if you do want to do it out of fabric, I do suggest then using a double-sized piece and just folding it so that you've got this really nice, neat edge. And you don't have to worry about any fraying at all ever coming up on the top here, because it literally cannot fray there. And that makes a big difference to the longevity of the piece that you've made. Okay, that's it. Hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial and I'll see you again soon. Take care now.